About 3 months ago, I posted 5 traces left over from extinct Disney rides, and you guys honestly loved it, so I think it would be a great idea if I did a part 2. So without further ado, here are 5 more traces left over from extinct Disney rides, part 2.
Open the Fantasyland Castle in the name of the children of the world.
In 1955, Disneyland would officially open to the public for the very first time, and over in Fantasyland, along with its amazing dark rides, one of them was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Mr. Disney's great picture, Wind in the Willows, inspires this ride, Mr. Toad, on a 1903 automobile. And believe me, this ride is the wildest of them all.
Now, Mr. Toad is still at Disneyland, but in one of the other Disney resort locations, it is well extinct. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride at Magic Kingdom opened with the park in 1971, and immediately became a huge success to the entire theme park. However, because of Disney's politically trying to get correct in the 80s, because Mr. Toad contained a lot of mature content that probably would not be good for today's times, Disney would close Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in September 7th of 1998.
They're as normal as you and I. They eat, they sleep, they have jobs, they pay taxes. They have a passion for Mr. Toad's Wild Ride? All right, well, some may say that's unusual, especially since they're willing to protest about it.
Now, immediately, Disney already had plans for its replacement, which would be The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. However, there actually are a couple traces left over from Mr. Toad secretly hidden in the ride. First, when you enter Owl's house, if you look to your left, you'll find a portrait of Mr. Toad handing the deed over to Owl. But then a little bit forwards, if you look to your right, you'll be able to see another portrait with Winnie the Pooh and Mole. There's one more tribute that actually goes all the way to the Haunted Mansion. After you exit out of the ride, if you look at the animal graveyard and look all the way at the top, you'll see a familiar character. Well, it's Mr. Toad, and he was placed here after the ride closed in 1998. So, Mr. Toad is gone, sadly, but enjoy these tributes while they last. Just across where Mr. Toad's Wild Ride used to be was 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. This ride was an underwater dark ride where you would board a submarine and go underwater. At the time, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was one of the most impressive rides at Disney World, but coming into the 90s, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was becoming a complicated nightmare for Disney, as they would have to do so much mechanical work of animatronics and mechanics under the water all the time. So in 1993, as a temporary thing, Disney closed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. However, a year later, in 1994, Disney decided that this still was going to be a complicated nightmare with mechanical and just high-budget issues. So with no announcement, Disney just closed 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea with no real goodbye. It would eventually turn into a meet and greet, but after that meet and greet would close, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea would just sit abandoned for 2 to 3 decades.
1, 2, 3.
But coming into 2009, Fantasyland really needed a new update because, as I mentioned, lots of its attractions were just closed. So Disney decided to bring new Fantasyland, which would include a mine train coaster and Under the Sea Journey of the Little Mermaid. Now, because this land was closed off for so long and its original place was a beloved ride, Disney Imagineers actually hid a bunch of little things that paid tribute to the submarine voyage. If you look up on one of the buildings, you'll see a squid weather vane, which is appropriate for this attraction, but it's actually a little tribute to the squid that used to be in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. As well as that, if you stand somewhere around these nets and look down, you'll be able to see the silhouette of the submarine that were on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So even though another Fantasyland attraction is gone, we have these Easter eggs to remember 20,000 Leagues by.
Now, in a kingdom very near.
Arthur, do hurry. The passengers are boarding.
In front of Disneyland's Tomorrowland, you can find Star Tours. This classic ride has been here since 1984 and has definitely gone through a lot of changes over the years. But did you know that way before Star Tours even existed, there was another ride called Adventure Through Inner Space?
For centuries, man had but his own two eyes to explore the wonders of his world.
This ride was an omni-mover dark ride, where you would be shrunken by a microscope that would allow you to see atoms and snowflakes.
Then he invented the microscope, a mighty eye, and discovered the fantastic universe beyond the limits of his own meager sight.
The ride was pretty popular at first, but when the 1980s came, the ride was becoming extremely outdated. So, because at the time the smash success Star Tours was out, Disney and Lucasfilm decided that Adventure Through Inner Space would officially close to make way for Star Tours.
The newest thrill in the universe at Disneyland.
Now they wanted to make sure they got this ride pretty fast, so most of the show building and queue was reused for the entire ride, but that's not it. Now formerly where R2-D2 used to be, there was this display box right next to him which was actually a tribute to one of the original displays from Adventure Through Inner Space. Another thing is that once you're in the actual ride itself, somewhere after you've taken off, you can see this microscope that's actually a tribute to the original microscope from Adventure Through Inner Space. So even though the mighty microscope is gone, it's fun to know that these tributes are still here to remember Adventure Through Inner Space.
Walt Disney, who will bring a new world of entertainment, pleasure, and economic development to the state of Florida. Walt Disney.
When Disney World was first being constructed, Disney Imagineers were not really given the task to make any new attractions, but instead existing attractions from Disneyland.
This here is the Hall of Presidents.
But there were a couple of exceptions, like the Country Bear Jamboree, but of course it wouldn't be too long until Disneyland got theirs. So that would leave only one other unique attraction for Disney World called the Mickey Mouse Revue.
Now we are back in Disney World, and to prove it, here's the Mickey Mouse Revue.
You see, the Mickey Mouse Revue was this animatronic show featuring about 96 animatronics, and at the very beginning of its opening day, people loved it. It was one of Disney World's fan favorites, but as time progressed, the ride kinda slowly declined in popularity. So, on September 14th of 1980, the Mickey Mouse Revue was sadly closed and make its way over to Disneyland Japan. Now, eventually Japan's closed, making it an extinct attraction, but as a tribute to the ride over in Disney World, when Mickey's PhilharMagic opened, they hid a couple Easter eggs in the queue. If you look at these two posters, they just look like ordinary, well, posters, but if you know the ride as well as me, you will know that these were actually the characters that performed on the Mickey Mouse Revue. Speaking of the Three Caballetas, the animatronics were recycled for the Three Caballetas ride over in Epcot. So, the Mickey Mouse Revue is sadly closed, but hey, these Easter eggs still exist of them. You know, it's crazy to think that Disneyland's Winnie the Pooh ride is almost 20 years old. But before there was Winnie the Pooh, there was another familiar ride that you probably are very familiar with. The Country Bear Jamboree was an animatronic show that featured animatronic bears made by the legend Mark Davis. However, due to the attraction's age coming into 2001, Disney decided to close the Country Bear Jamboree to make way for the many adventures with Winnie the Pooh. Now, you probably already know that just after the Humpalum and Woozle scene, Buff, Max, and Melvin can be found just behind the wall. But did you know that during the Christmas theme for the Haunted Mansion, the animatronic for Big Al was actually recycled for the Oogie Boogie animatronic? Along with that, if you head over to where Guardians of the Galaxy is, and look just where the abandoned Yeti animatronic is, you'll be able to see this octopus that's actually the octopus from the Country Bear Jamboree summer theme show. Lastly, if you head over to Goofy's Sky School and into the queue on one of the papers, you'll be able to see that Big Al wrote a letter to Goofy saying that they're still in operation and have just moved away from Disneyland. Well, everybody, once again, even if you have a ride that no longer exists at any of the Disney parks, there will probably most likely be something left over from it. So enjoy finding these little traces left over from extinct Disney rides. Well, everybody, thank you for watching. I know it's been a long time since I've posted, but I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next Industrai episode. Bye.